Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the session. So we'll start. Krish.
Good evening, everyone. Today we'll be having our second meetup on the topic of how education can help us reach the SDGs. We're having this conversation because it is currently SDG week. In case you don't know what SDGs are, they are the Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations in 2015 and are 17 broad and put our goals in 17 broad different categories to help us have specific points to reach in the following years. There's out of the 17, I'll just quickly go through all the 17 so everybody can be on the same page. The first is no poverty, which of course, as the name implies, is a set of goals that will lead to reducing poverty and eventually eliminating it in the future. Zero hunger, which is the same as the previous one, but for hunger. Good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below the water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions. And the final goal would be partnership between all the nations for these goals. Like I mentioned, these are all very, very broad topics, but I hope that all of us are able to touch upon them today between all our speakers. So I would request Project Guria to please, the first speaker of Project Guria to please speak up and start our conversation.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Abhinav Jha, the research coordinator for Project Guria. So as Krish already spoke about the topic that is achieving SDGs through education. So since I'm from Project Guria, naturally the bias would be towards how educating the girl child can have significant impact when it comes to achieving SDG goals. So I will not be looking at all the SDG goals, but some of them and how can that be achieved through educating the girl child. So looking at Sustainable Development Goal 1 and 2, which is decreasing in poverty and hunger. Now, the World Bank had conducted a research study, and that research showed that with every extra year of primary education, a girl's individual wage rate increases an average of 10 to 20% and 25% with an extra year of secondary school. And this income, that is 90% of a mother's wage, goes towards caring for her family. So if we have more girls who are educated and they take up responsibility as being heads of the family in the future, that income would be spent towards the household and taking care of the economic needs of the family, and that in the long run would ensure that the household is lifted out of poverty and hunger. Now coming to the Sustainable Development Goal, which is SDG 3, which focuses on improved health and well-being. Now it has been seen that with a better education for the girl child, fewer child deaths, fewer maternal deaths. There is a decrease in infectious diseases that also happens because with better education comes better, there comes, a situation where there is more, because of more better education, they can decide, that we should go to the doctor on time, or that they have better inputs when it comes to taking the right kind of nutrition that is required for their health. So even better health is ensured through, girl education. And now coming to the last, like one of the last few is very important SDGs that can be, achieved through education of girl child. That is, educating the girl child can actually lead to stronger institutions, peace, and justice. Now, a study was conducted by the UNESCO, and it said that children who receive a secondary education are more likely to show tolerance than those with a primary education only towards people who speak another language. So, as we see, like even the society can become more harmonious and peaceful if the education of the girl child takes place. That's it from my side.
Thanks a lot, Abhinav. You made some really good points, I think, especially about how these goals. Of course, yes, like you said, you're slightly biased, but I think the bias does not really matter there. Girls really can benefit more from maybe to benefit more from these goals, as opposed to men, where men are typically usually already have a slight advantage due to how society sees things. So thanks a lot for your thoughts, and I request the next member of Project Guria to please come up.
Yeah, hello everyone. Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, you're perfectly clear.
Yeah, so I'm Riya Sharma and I'm policy research intern with the Project Guria. So as we know that today's topic for policy discussion is achieving SDGs through school education. So first of all, I would like to say that this is one very promising direction if everyone is looking forward to the vision, to manifesting the vision of SDGs, especially through school education. As we know, it is actually in the very elementary school education years that students are curious and they're receptive. So if through school education and at the very place that they go and spend in a substantial number of hours of their life, which is at the school, and if the same vision of SDGs is being implemented and is being taught to them at the school level, so we can expect the students to do their bit in this direction even later in their lives. So I think for this to get implemented and for this to get manifested at the practical level, a number of things need to be done. For me, I believe that personally, that establishing a very well established interactive dialogue between the teachers and students can do wonders in this direction. As we know that students are actually in the most direct contact with the teachers, and it is through them that they identify the whole system of school, and they associate themselves with the school through teachers. So I think that if a very meaningful discussions and interactive continuum can be established between teachers, where teachers themselves come upon and they take initiatives to spread the cause and the vision of SDGs, then I think that students themselves will be able to take up more number of initiatives in this direction. Number two, I would like to say that if the very environment in which the students are studying, that is, if the school itself is SDG empowering, if it provides the basic I think Ria's network is gone. So till then, let's move on to the next member of Project Korea. Okay, so let's move on to. We'll wait for Ria for a minute. Okay, so let's move on to Neerja.
Am I audible?
Yes, Neerja, you're audible and visible.
Okay. So, hey everyone. I believe that school is first in any place of learning for a child, and every revolution, which is good or bad, it starts from somewhere from school. We've seen great personalities emerge from their institutions to which they belong, and school helps us shape children. So I think to relate that with what is going on today, which is extreme cases of climate change, I think we all are observing that, and there's no curriculum required for us to know the adverse effects that we're facing of it. But I think still there's some basic things that can be done through school education to attain the SDG goal of everything related to climate action, which is climate change and SDG goal called climate action, or responsible consumption and production, sustainable cities and communities. I believe that Indian concept talks about jugaad. So we tend to reuse our resources. We tend to reduce our consumption of raw materials through that, through the way that we have termed as jugaad. It plays an integrated role in conceptualizing circular economy, which is very main when it comes to responsible consumption and productions clauses. So if we start right from our schools and encourage children just learning, by breaking or joining things as they like, that helps us, at a very basic level it starts, but as we progress, I think we're going to get somewhere into attaining circular economy. Not just that, this waste segregation, which is a thing we've been struggling with for so long, I think that can be attained through school education once we start. Some great examples are Korean and Japanese schools, which let you clean your school premises. So if those things are done in Indian education system, they can not only help us with clean water and hygiene sustainable goals that we aspire to achieve, but also like coming back to waste segregation, that is a huge opportunity when it comes to addressing responsible consumption and production SDG goal. So I think everything is going to start through schools and via school education. As my friend has said, that gender inequality can be addressed right from the school premises. I totally agree with him. There are all the great changes that find their beginnings through school education. So yeah, with that I rest my point.
Great points put forward. The fact that you included an age-old concept like jugaad, which is like you could call the trademark. I think that's a really fantastic perspective. Now I call upon Abhilasha, the member of Team Arogya, to present her views.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Abhilasha, you're audible.
Hello, everyone. I'm Abhilasha Saikia, and I'm the research coordinator of Project Arogya. So we all are aware and acknowledge the fact that education is such an important and indispensable aspect of everyone's lives, and in such a globalized world that we live in, right? So I have basically cross-connected and analyzed SDG 4 to almost all the SDGs, given that all the 17 goals are interconnected and interrelated. And then eventually I'll be talking about the localized policy implementation of SDGs in the Indian context. So first of all, I believe that SDG 4 can be held directly accountable for achieving SDG 1, which is no poverty, because given that people have access to basic as well as higher education, it can lead to employment of the youth, and basic necessary education does impart a sense of social and economic accountability on you to impart and to impact your surroundings in a progressive manner, right? And education can actually lead to the breaking of the shackles of generational poverty within a particular family, and there are many examples for that matter. And it can also give them progressive alternatives to common social realities, like that of child marriage and child labor. And that automatically impacts SDG 2 and SDG 3, which are basically ending of hunger and ensuring healthy lives and well-being of the people. So for example, a child born to a literate mother is 50% more likely to survive past the age of 5 than a child born to an illiterate mother. And if all children receive the basic primary education, then 70 lakh cases of HIV in young adults could have been prevented each year, according to the Global Partnership for Education. Then comes, so SDG 4 is directly related to SDG 5 also, which pertains to achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls. So providing basic education to girls and empowerment of women in society so that they are being able to make a living out of it has long-term benefits not only for women but then to nurture and sustain a progressive society for the long run, and it would eventually lead to breaking the diabolical impacts of patriarchy on women as well as men, and lead to a just society on the grounds of gender. Then this would eventually work as a catalyst to achieve goal 8, 10, and 16, which are basically promoting inclusive and sustainable economic growth, employment, and decent work for all, reducing inequality within and among countries, and promoting just, peaceful, and inclusive societies. So basically, SDG 4 and education on a general ground has a very vivid and long reach impact on almost all the sustainable development goals of the United Nations. Then even though all these dimensions and aspects seem to be achievable, they cannot be achieved without proper policy, legislation, and implementation. So policy, according to me, it responds to the cultural, social, political, and economic norms, and in turn it is shaped by them. So policy is developed within a particular social, political, economic, and environmental aspect, and it is the result of political pressure to basically convert resources into public goods, right? So in the Indian context, there are certain beneficial policies which pertain to SDG 4, like that of the flagship scheme that we have, that is Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, Padhe India campaign, Beti Bachao Beti Padhao, Rashtriya Avishkar Abhiyan, etc. And now the NEP 2020 has also been in alignment with the Sustainable Development Goal 4 of the United Nations. So I would also like to suggest two things for the same matter. First is to provide equitable access to education to reduce gender disparity. So equity as a dimension has also been incorporated in the fields of public policy and public administration after prolonged debates in these fields of expertise. And equitable education will also allow space for individual growth of students. And then secondly, the quality of the education that the government is incorporating in its policies. See, oftentimes the quality of teachers is subsumed because of the quantifiable aspect of access to education, right? So now the measurement of progress for the SDGs overall will theoretically be guided by 4 levels of indicators, that is global, regional, thematic, and national. But then the thing is, all these 4 global indicators, they do not deal with pedagogy and learning adequately. So now the quantity, reach, and coverage of education policies is definitely very important, but then it would also lead to extreme policy paralysis if the quality of education that has been imparted to the youth is in shambles. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such an insightful perspective. I would like to call upon Ria to continue with her opinions that she wanted to present. She's facing some network issues, so she won't be able to turn on her camera. But Ria, try unmuting yourself.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah, so sorry for that inconvenience, but I would like to continue as I said previously. So as I was focusing and emphasizing that why there is actually a requirement for the school environment to be very enriching and very SDG friendly. If that happens, then I guess we are kind of working automatically in the very direction, because students will be able to witness a very SDG friendly and SDG empowering environment in the very workplace or in the very place that they study. So this is one thing. And as Abhilasha even pointed out, that SDG 4 is very much interconnected with the other SDGs. So I think that if school education is emphasized in itself, then I think a number of other SDGs will be automatically achieved. So I think one of the most important and one of the most indispensable SDGs out of all the 17 ones is this, because that would actually help us to work and manifest the other SDGs as well. The last thing that I would like to say over here is this, that a number of times we have seen that policies do sound very good on paper, and theoretically they do sound very positive, but it is actually at the very practical level that they falter and they leave a number of loopholes. So I think for that, state support is very much required, and if not just financial but even moral, because it's unlikely that schools themselves will take up this initiative. So I think if there will be a constant state support from the government, from other institutions as well, and if there somehow happens to be the manifestation of a community which is dedicatedly working in this direction, then I think we can look forward to achieving SDGs in a long run. And as we also know that it is only till 2030 that the SDGs have been envisioned to be targeted, and that has been decided as the target year. So that is what I had to say. That sums it up from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ria. Now I would like to call up Noor. Noor, are you there? Noor, you're not audible. No, you're not audible. Try changing your mic settings. Oh, no, you're not audible. Okay, let's take another speaker till then, and then we'll move on to Noor. Okay, let's call Devyani. Devyani is here.
Hello everyone. So I'm Devyani from Policy Advocacy and Research team. So so education has a direct impact. It is very crucial. It has a direct impact on achieving all the other goals. So I would mainly focus on gender equality. So gender equality is a very fundamental human right, and it is very gender equality is something like it will be very helpful in leading a sustainable world and prosperous and sustainable world. So education, according to statistics that from 114 countries, it says that um, one extra year of education is associated with 1.4% of Gini change in 1.4% of Gini coefficient. So I think education, it has if our children are educated and people are very well educated, it leads to poverty, it reduces poverty, and it impacts all other goals. So I think, yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Devyani. Am I audible, guys? Am I audible? Okay, great. So let's move on to Noor. Noor, आपका mic ठीक हो गया? While she is working things out, let's move on to the next speaker. Let's call Shreya from the Policy and Research team.
Yeah, thank you. So I would like to
Shreya, can you
focus on
please
the
turn on your camera?
Oh, I'll try. The network is not great.
Yeah,
Is it
now we
visible?
can see. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
visible and audible.
Okay, so I would like to focus on the two main goals. That is the goal number 3 and 5, which is gender equality, the fifth one, and the third one is the health and sanitation. So firstly, we'll talk about the gender equality one. So I feel before educating the children about sustainable development, it's very important for the teachers for themselves to know. So a report suggests that most of the teachers, they don't even in the government schools in the rural areas, they don't know properly the meaning of the term sustainable development. So I feel there need to be a proper training of the teachers for they need to be imparted with the knowledge of what is sustainable development, what are these goals, and then we can talk about how they can give this knowledge to the children so that they can get educated. Talking about gender equality, I feel the one of the most simple ways is to include in the curriculum of the children, because books are something which are part of every kind of education, whether you talk about universities, schools, or colleges. So textbooks are something that is really valued in our education system. So just making a curriculum where students have to properly study about gender equality, feminism, workplace equality, everything, that would be really helpful. And then comes to sanitation, I feel education and sanitation are sort of interlinked. So a study shows that women are given education about birth control, about family planning, it has a huge effect on the mortality rate of the children. So taking example from that, students need to know about the basic, especially women, about the basic sanitary practices, the menstrual health, everything, as students spend 1/5 of their entire day in school. So I feel this is the place where they can be imparted with these learnings. Yeah.
Very well said. Yeah, now Noor has joined us back. So Noor,
Hello, I'm audible.
yeah, you're audible and visible.
Yeah, okay. So, hi, my name is Harnoor Kaur. I am a part of Project Guria. I'm a content writer plus a research intern in the team. So, this whole conversation about sustainable development goals makes me feel like education is an important aspect of it, but what we should focus really on is imparting the knowledge of what really sustainable development goals mean to little children, because children, even in today's times, if you watch them, they don't know how to dispose of their trash. They just throw it inside their bags, and they don't even they treat it as something of not much value, this whole concept of being able to save for the future generations, because they're so lost in their own world. Children are. So I feel like on a basic level, tertiary, secondary, and a primary level, teachers need to impart the knowledge of what sustainable development goals imply in schools. So teaching them how they can reuse their so-called trash, how they can save every single part of what they consume. That is the most important thing. The minimization of usage of resources at the level of children, because children become future leaders of tomorrow eventually, and then they teach the upcoming generations of how to make a better future. So imparting the knowledge, I feel, is very essential. And then as a part of team Project Gudia, I also profess how gender equality in education is also important in order to achieve sustainable development goals. Because if you see your mothers in your households, they make excellent use of every single thing that you see that to you seems to be a waste. So they reuse newspapers and empty water bottles, etc. So I feel like women have this inbuilt character of being able to channelize their energy to recycle products. So they can apply this knowledge through education. They can be imparted better skills, and they can apply their knowledge at the workplace or at the industrial level. So if they're part of organizations, they can use and manage their resources effectively. I feel that that would make a really big difference in terms of sustainable development in the future. Moreover, this divide in education, the rural-urban divide in education, I feel like should be resolved in order to achieve sustainable development. If you see in urban areas, since people have less resources from the start, they are able to channelize their resources much more effectively than people in rural areas. People in rural areas treat their resources like they are entitled to them. So they create a lot of waste which is dumped in these huge wastelands, and a lot of resource I feel gets wasted in this process. So we should learn from people in urban areas. So imparting education to rural children. So we can learn from people in rural areas. So imparting education in rural areas, not just the little gurukuls that they go to, but establishing Pakka houses as schools, proper buildings where they can be taught on how to channelize their skills that they have developed over the years effectively in other environments too. I feel like that is also an important part of how to reach sustainable development goals in India. So thank you.
I definitely agree. I mean, when we're talking about, for example, if we're talking about menstrual health, so it is important to impart about knowledge about menstrual health, but we also need to understand that the need of the hour is to ensure that they're also aware about disposal of this menstrual, waste. So these two things should go hand in hand to ensure that we, have a safe environment for them and also have proper hygienic practices. So point of view really well presented. Now I would like to call Sadhvi from Project Saksha.
Hi, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible and visible.
Okay. So I'm from Project Sakshan, and what we do is we try to find solutions to accessibility issues in schools. We work with disabled children. Now, sensitization towards disability starts in school. And the first step we could do is the inclusion of accessible spaces and design elements in school campuses. When you have little children see all the different ways you can incorporate walking, all the different ways you can incorporate paths and stairs, the alternatives you can have, you already inculcate that in children that there are other ways to do things in your school rather than just walk a flight of stairs or have the same textbook based material, where you could also have audiovisual components to your education. You could have different types of textbooks. So the first element would obviously be the inclusion of accessible teaching aids and infrastructure. Moreover, encouraging students to come up with solutions to problems faced by the disabled, we need to encourage them to think critically about these issues. And you could do that by having an interdisciplinary approach to how you study things. Instead of looking at disciplines as being independent of each other, we could encourage them to think about how these disciplines are connected, how social studies and science and even moral science, for example, all of those are connected to create the world that we live in. So when you ask them to practically apply the knowledge they've learned in other classes to the other classes, you encourage them, you prepare them for the big world beyond. And apart from that, apart from moving on from rote learning practices, we could also encourage children to be a part of the decision-making process by having small student governments in schools. By involving them in the decision-making process early, we teach them to advocate not just for themselves, but also for other groups in their own classrooms, which gives them incentive to do that later on in the future. And that is all I have to say.
I think some really great points put forth, and makes sense that talking about subjects that are actually interdisciplinary courses, because that is something that is what is happening nowadays. Most of the subjects are related to each other, so it is very important that this is being portrayed and conveyed to the students. So really well said. Moving on, now I would like to call Shruti Nandi from Policy Advocacy and Research Team. Is Shruti here? I think there might be some network issues. So we move on to Bhargavi. Bhargavi. Okay, no issues. We have Shrishti Singh from Project Vedana. Shrishti, please turn on your camera and yeah, now you're audible.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's a very, very nice experience till now with all of you to discuss such important issues. So cheers to everybody. So what I want to focus upon today is, uh, today since we are majorly focusing upon goal 4 and 5, which is about quality education and gender equality. So if we think about all the 17 sustainable development goals deeply, then we'll get to know that these two are actually the most important for me, because every other sustainable goal is actually somewhere dependent upon the success of these two goals about education and gender equality. And I can say that there is no sustainable development at all without education and gender equality. So coming back to goal 4, which is about quality education. So first of all, if we think about the accessibility wala part, where the poor children should be allowed to go and access for quality education. So actually in this scenario, girls are the ones who are at double disadvantage. First, because of the poverty, and second, because of the gender. It's not all about just to push children into schools. It's also about to access the quality of education. And a lot of surveys in India have revealed that in government schools, if you assess the quality of education, for example, a grade 5 student who has been into the schools for so many years will not be able to solve the test of grade 2 or 3 level. So it's very, very unfortunate for our country, because even if we make policies to make education accessible to children, then what is the point of if there is no quality of education? There are very irresponsible teachers as well in the government schools who actually don't care about the good education of the children. They only just are there to just fulfill their task of the day and they leave without even accessing how much the children have learned. And then if we come about on the infrastructure level, there are very pathetic levels of infrastructure at government schools. There are no toilets. There are poor sanitation facilities. Even if there are toilets, they are in a very, very pathetic conditions without any running water as well. So these things have to be taken care of. And as a member of Project Vedna, it is my responsibility to point out that school education is actually of a very critical importance when it comes to girls. Because we have been facing this unfortunate upcoming of this school absenteeism, in which girls actually drop out from their schools because of the menstrual cycle each month. And the figures are actually very high. And it is actually a matter of critical doubt and critical importance to be taken care of. Girls need to be aware about the sanitation practices. And it's not just about making the girls aware of it, it's also about making the school infrastructure inclusive of the girl children. There has to be good sanitation facilities at the school so that the girls are actually secure in order to come to schools. So school absenteeism has to be taken care of. And when we come to the gender equality issue, which is the goal 5, it's very important to teach the guys, the boys, about gender equality. It's very important to teach them about against any of the very comfortably accepted notions of masculinity or male superiority. These things have to be changed, and then only we can expect a quality education and gender equality. This is all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shrishti, for your perspective. Now I would like to call upon Anushka from Project Vedna.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anushka, and I'm a research intern from the Project Vedna. So, while I'm talking today about this entire topic that is sustainable development goals, something that I would like to talk about is inclusive education. Inclusive education is mostly focused on, including children from all different backgrounds, including children with disabilities, including children with minority languages, etc. So when we talk about this particular thing, inclusive education, one of the key areas where at least India is lacking is a lack of proper quality teachers. When we talk about this entire fact that we have to focus on quality education, education is imparted to us by the professors, by the teachers of these primary education, secondary education, something which is lacking a lot in India. So as we know that there is this thing called, there is the fundamental right where, all children are supposed to attend, are, having free education from 7 to 14 years in our country. That's the fundamental right. But there has also been this particular loophole that nobody talks about, that this particular right actually focuses on high enrollment, that kids are only supposed to get enrolled in the schools. There is no such thing about actually attendance, which is something that is also, is a huge discussion today when it comes to the educational sector. So this, when we notice, is that when there is school absenteeism from the part of the children, there is also a lack of teachers available who are, actually taking care of all these students at the first place. There is lack of vocational training. There is lack of proper training that can at least give the kids a proper education or training skills, from the teacher's perspective. With the in when in national education policy came into process, everyone was like, we will focus on vocational training, we will bring in a lot of interdisciplinary courses which will help the children to increase, their skills, technical skills, theoretical skills, etc. But then there is one more issue, that the teachers are not trained, something which is, I think, we should focus on. There is a scheme called the Shala Siddhi scheme, which is, applied in all schools of in India, where the schools themselves will do self-assessment. But then it is actually ironical, hysterical, whatever you call it, that out of 1.5 million schools in our country, there is just 9,000 schools that has so far taken part in this entire process, which is why it's hilarious that, people are actually bringing in new schemes, but there is nothing that is about going for the regarding the teachers. So even there was this, I was reading this research paper recently, that there was this pilot study done on the biometric attendance system for the teachers. There was actually there was actually shortage. The number of teachers versus the number of children in, the number of schools in which the research was taken care of, it was actually a very hysterical ratio. So yeah, that is something that I would like to focus on. And of course, there is the proper allocation of funds that needs to be taken care of. So yeah, that's it from my side.
Yeah, so basically you're saying that the government should focus on the the teacher pupil ratio to ensure that quality education is being imparted.
Yes.
I think that's a really great point. Moving on, I would like to call Akshara from Project Saksham.
Everyone, I'm Akshara. So basically, when we talk about sustainable development goals, it's mainly about talking about higher education. So higher education institutions, primarily, they have a wide array of disciplines, and they also have great background sustainable development.
Akshara,
Research,
I think that
education and all organization decision making.
Akshara, I think you're facing some network issues.
Hello?
So because you're not audible, your voice is breaking a lot. So try joining again. Till then, we'll take another speaker. Works?
Okay, sure.
Let's call on. Till Akshara is joining, let's call on Dia from Project Saksham.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dia Dhal, a volunteer under Project Saksham. As we all know, sustainable development means a development which caters to the needs of the present generation and also preserve the same quality and quantity of resources for the future generations to come. To meet this particular objective, the United Nations adopted 17 goals in 2015, which were to be achieved by all the member nations by 2030. There are many steps taken in the direction to achieve these goals by India, but there is still a long way to go. And I think that educating children, giving them the right information and educating them can help us in achieving these goals. If children are educated from the very beginning, they can understand the importance of these resources and its value. They will be better able to change their behavior from indiscriminate use of resources and encourage them to adopt a more sustainable lifestyle, which will help not only them but also the generations to come. There are many different ways by which education can help the children in becoming informed about such a sensitive topic as during the early years of a child's life, he or she spends most of the time in the school, which can be a great influence in a child's life, as most of the learning in the early years is by observing the people around them. According to me, schools should regularly campaign for achieving the sustainable development goals and encourage not only the students but also their parents to contribute to the issue. There could be posters around the school and in the classrooms mentioning 17 sustainable development goals. There could be a good and a hygienic school canteen, a water dispenser, and a medical room to ensure that the students learn from their surroundings. I think incorporating such knowledge in the students will help them do their bit in achieving sustainable development. And as we know that little drops make the mighty ocean, similarly, these small efforts on the individual level will help us meet a larger goal of sustainable development.
Thanks a lot for your thoughts, Dia. They were very varied, and I think gave us all a quick refresher on the whole topic, and of course what India itself has done towards the has done to reach those goals. Next, I'd like to call up Astha Mittal for Project Sambal to speak up. Astha, are you here?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you're clear.
So we have always heard complaints from teachers about students being frequently absent or dropping out from school after a certain class. But now we commonly hear from the parents and the public about teachers not showing up in classes, attending classrooms regularly or haphazardly, and also certain government schools having no teachers at all or few of them managing the entire school. Isn't that strange? Good evening, everyone. I am Astha Mittal, Policy Research Intern in Project Sambal, and my topic is poor quality education in government school. We notice an unwritten law in the society that a child born to a poor family joins the local government school, whereas the middle class and other well-off families admit their children into international or other private institutions having CBSE or ICSE curriculum. This dichotomy not only reinforces inequality in the society, but at times creates a sort of untouchability between haves and have-not. We all know primary schools are the foundation of a child education, but as on date, the quality happens to be poor. And one of the reasons of poor quality of education is lack of interest of teachers in the teaching. The simple explanation of not having interest is they are getting paid and no one is there to complain about them. Usually, we see below poverty line families enroll their child in government schools and they don't pay attention on their kids if they are getting a good quality education as they are working day and night to feed their family every day. Not all, but most of the teachers in government primary schools are in the profession just because earning, not for teaching. So for them, they are getting money because they have cleared some exams or completed some degrees and they really don't care about students that much. The school teachers didn't even get inspected so that they can improve that much. As some solutions, I can suggest, number one, inspection of teachers. Number two, no permanent jobs. Even professors should be contracted, renewed strictly based on performance. It should be like the private sector. And number three, remove fixed pay structures based on numbers of years and seniority and make it merit-based. If someone is really smart, pay him more and give them higher designations. We can't evaluate clerks and scientists in the same manner. And I rest my case here. Thank you.
Thanks for your views again. I think the point you mentioned about the disparity between education available to people because of income levels was very valid and something that is a problem that is very widespread around India.
Yeah,
Akshara,
I think adding on to what Krish has said, I would just like to mention that you stating that, encouraging more contractual jobs rather than permanent jobs helps in, improving the education system is something that a lot of people ignore, and that point has been conveyed very well. Yeah, go ahead, Krish.
Akshara, if your internet is better now, could you please speak up and then we'll go on.
Yeah, I am now enough.
I think your voice is still cracking, at least for me. Abhinathi, is it the same for you?
Yeah, it is the same for me. Akshara, try speaking something and we'll see if it's still cracking or not.
Um, so, so actually, while speaking about SDG, we have all been talking about education. So, since while talking about education, higher education in institution encompass wide array of discipline, so they can have a huge impact on the sustainable development, which is through research, innovation, and organizational decision making. It can also be said that SDGs cannot be achieved without traditional of education institutions. So I'm from project section. We mainly focus on working as well as understanding the policy flaws for differently abled students as differently abled community. So it was previously noticed that in 2012, the United Nations have made certain goals which was initiated for the disabled community. One was to provide equitable as well as inclusive education qualification while eliminating disparities like gender, and also to provide sustainable economic growth to the disabled community, and also to provide employment and decent work in an international community, which also ensures equal pay. Other than that, they also strive in order to reduce inequality among countries and among as well as within countries. Other than that, one of the other major goal which they have planned to implement is the global partnership for sustainable development. Understanding the accountability of SDG has been very crucial. Now coming back to one of the major in India, one state which has started implementing, or let's say have been planning to implement by 2030, is Assam government. They have also made certain goals like eradication of extreme poverty, end hunger, and ensure access of food to all people, reduction of maternal mortality, and ensuring that all girls and boys have complete education with in primary as well as secondary level. So they also ensure access to drinking water for all. So I think SDG goals have certain good beneficials, but the implementation also play a huge hand in how it works in the which is planned to be implemented. That's all I conclude.
Thank you so much, Akshara. Those were some really great perspectives. Now I would like to call upon Anupriya Gajraj. Anupriya. I think there are some network issues. Till then, we'll move on to Raksha. Raksha, are you here?
Yes, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible and visible. So I'll call Raksha Pathak from Project Sambal. Go ahead, Raksha.
Yes. Good evening to all. I am Raksha Pathak, Policy Research Intern at Project Sambal. So I would directly jump to the point I am supposed to say, as everyone has already briefed us about SDG and education. So children in their young age have greater grasping power and adaptability. Therefore, right education is needed to be imparted to accelerate progress towards the SDGs for every child. UNICEF embraces 3 A's approach, that is awareness, action, and accountability. Now, awareness can be achieved with the right tools and information. First, it is important to let the child and let the children and youth understand why the goals matters to everyday life. Then it is possible for them to be action oriented. Now, as far as accountability is concerned and considered, it is important to note that these goals cannot be achieved in isolation or through efforts of selective community or groups. Right? It is everyone's social responsibility to work for a social cause. For this, school is the best medium, wherein the principles like unity, fraternity are greatly welcomed and appreciated. Through everyone's cooperation, it is possible to achieve these goals collectively. Now, I would like to give certain solutions. Like for younger kids, we can introduce SDG through comics, storytelling chapters in books, which will be innovative to them, and they can come at a great length. For primary and secondary going children, we can introduce and teach the terminologies and functioning of SDG, why they are important, and how we can implement it through our daily through the acts of daily life. Then the education system can run certain activities like moderate discussion, art and talk shows, wherein innovations and innovative ideas can be put forward, and young peers can welcome their peers and inspire others to work for social cause. Now, SDG 4 program specifically target the goal of right to education. Also, if learning is for all, also if learning for all is not given priority in the country, we will not be able to achieve goals that has been set. For this, I can give solution, I can give suggestion actually. It is like the school can reserve, build and upgrade education facilities that are child disability and gender sensitive and provide safe, non-violent, inclusive and effective learning environment for all. The state or district can also run certain evaluation program wherein they can monitor the efficiency of school implementing SDG 4 goals. Now, in our country, we have certain schemes and policies like night schools for the people who are working in the day and can get education at the night time. Also, there are certain vulnerable children, poor children who cannot enroll themselves in schools. So for them, the states and the country has introduced school on wheels, wherein certain volunteers come together and they go to slums or people where there is poverty centers, and they impart education. And for this, I would like to suggest education can be gained through schools, but knowledge has to be shared. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raksha, for your opinions about education and the importance to impart knowledge. Now I move on to Suhana. Suhana, you there?
Hello, everyone.
Great. Yeah, you're audible and visible.
So I would like to talk about sustainable development goals, and I think basically education is the key to reach or to go for our goals, because education is the key factor in all of the goals that I have studied so far. So moving on to the first one, that is no poverty. In that, our aim is to move towards no poverty. So it is not only India, it is not only other countries, but in the whole world. We can see how poverty driven areas are not developed, and they are in the awestruck of poverty so much that they are unable to develop. So I think with education we can eradicate poverty through the census done by UNESCO. So in that they mentioned that 171 million people could escape poverty if they only had basic reading and writing skills. So how is that fair? Basic reading and writing skills is we get after sixth class only. Till our primary education, we may not even need secondary education for that. And when I studied that, in that I studied that also that if adult people completed their secondary education, then the level of poverty could be really reduced by half. So how incredible would be that if we were able to achieve that. So I think education is the key factor in this, and we can help, or we can make ourselves, our world educated by following through uh, by following these policies. I think that education should be a basic right. It should not only be said, but it should be followed. Like if we are saying that it is a basic right, so everyone should be able to have access to it. In case if a child from a rural family is not able to get access to it, so government should reach out to that family and provide that basic right of education. And not only that, but also other things like others have mentioned, the enrollment number should be increased, which should be followed by the regular attendance. Then the facilities in the school should be provided properly so that students are willing to come to the school. The teachers and students should be involved in the learning programs so that the education system uh, should achieve its quality, and it should be enhanced to a perspective where everyone knows that, yeah, this is the thing that I want. So I think all this will only make our world grow. So I think it is very important for us, for all of us, to educate ourselves, and Sarkari School follows the same thing as it uh, aims towards that goal. So yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot for your views and thoughts. I think they were very insightful. Especially, I think you built upon a lot of points given by other people before, especially, and I think that really helped everyone get a slightly new perspective on the topic. Next up, I would like to call Anupriya Garg. Anupriya, are you here?
Hello, everyone.
Hi, please switch the camera, please. You're not visible. You're clear.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah.
So I want to speak about the gender equality. As we see, gender inequality is a major problem in our society. Like in backward areas and rural areas, girls are being devoid of the education. So education is the solution for the gender inequality. I think that if girls are provided education, education empower women to fight for their rights. Like learning to read and write help women to access information about their rights and how can they challenge and fight against them. And it also help them to get wages and better job opportunities so that they can be independent. And if they will be independent, then it's normal that they get equality in their house, in around society, in like in their environment, around environment. And education also make women healthier. Like if a girl is provided education about we can say maternal death will be reduced. They will be educated about how they can keep themselves safe and from HIV diseases, or like, and if a girl is educated, she can educate their children also. So it will become a cycle, and then I think it will be this equality will be reduced in the society. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your views and words, Anupriya. I agree. I agree with you on it is very important for us to prioritize the education of women. I'd like to call up Ishani for closing up the notes, closing up the meeting, since I think everybody has spoken here today. Ishani, are you there?
Yes, am I audible?
Yeah, perfectly clear.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. I'm Shani Agarwal. I am an associate project manager at the Sarkari School, an organization that I recently joined because it actually attracted to me the fact that the organization includes such a varied set of people, like people from different cities across different fields. They just come together in order to work towards a social cause. So today we had majorly gathered in order to celebrate or be a part of the SDG week through the topic achieving SDGs through school education. So a lot of interesting viewpoints that I could hear throughout the session. One of the members beautifully connected all the 17 SDG goals with education and established the fact that yes, education is the basic necessity in order to progress towards each and every of the 17 goals. Somewhere down the line, education should be the topmost priority of our country. Somebody even talked about certain initiative like the right to education, also national education policy. There was also a teacher-centric debate, not a debate, a teacher-centric discussion happening, which talked about that the teachers are not to, the teachers are only involved, most of them are only involved in this profession for money and not for actually educating the students. And a beautiful solution was given by the team member that we should keep teachers on a contractual basis, not on permanent basis. So I feel most of the topic that we wish to cover and we aimed to spread more awareness through this session was covered by each and every of our team members. But just one thing that I would like to say is that we talked about gender inequality and school education, like goal 4 and goal 6 a lot. But during gender inequality, we majorly focused on the female child. I'm not denying that completely. Obviously, the somewhere in our country, the female child is neglected more as compared to the male child. But what about the male child population who is forced into child labor and not allowed access to education? What about that section? So I feel the government should do some sort of initiative, some sort of scheme, some sort of incentive should be given to the parents in villages or like the villagers that do not send your male child or do not make them work as a daily wage worker. Please do send them to schools. I feel in that context, during gender inequality, during that sort of a discussion, we should include both the female as well as the male child. We shouldn't neglect them completely out of the picture. So yeah, that's it from my end.
Thank you so much, Ishani. From this whole discussion, from what I could conclude was that education is, an instrument for national development and social change. Be it girl education, be it education for the disabled. Education is a vital tool for promotion and improvement of individuals and the society at large. And this could clearly be seen from the discussion today. Thank you so much, guys, for the discussion. And I request each and every one of you to please turn on your cameras. We'll take a picture, a session picture. So please turn on your cameras. Thank you so much, guys. Okay, we have 2-3 more people. Shrishti, Dia, Raksha, Sohana, please turn on your cameras. Raksha, Shishtu, Priya. Just for a minute. Okay, I just take a picture. Everybody smile.